But what do you think Jake Retzlaff's doing right now?
Yeah, right?
Do you think Jake Retzlaff is working relationships and back channeling and talking to...
Like, come on.
He's not in the transfer portal yet officially, right? I think we all agree, and from essentially what Kalani said today was, that he's going to be making an announcement. Here's Kalani talking about, and do I put the two words together and piss everybody? Here's Kalani essentially talking about life at BYU and
expectations.
And well, I don't want to say the words honor code because so many people have just no idea what the honor code is and no idea of why there was no injustice by BYU against Jake Retzlaff. Here's BYU head coach Kalani Sitake.
University is, we're sponsored and affiliated with the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So there's a level of expectation, a standard that we ask our student athletes and our students all together to live by. Every school has their standards. We have ours too, our expectations. We have an academic expectation as well. So if young people don't fit the academic criteria, then they don't get in school. So these are just part of the things that you have to be committed to, and we expect our students to live according to what they signed up for.
Notice he didn't say our football players. Notice he didn't say
right?
Our students, because I'll continue to say this about BYU this year. BYU isn't out avoiding the Jake Retzlaff conversation. BYU is out talking actively to recruits about the honor code and Jake Retzlaff, because that's life at BYU. Nothing happens until we know it happened. Jake Retzlaff didn't have consensual sex, allegedly, with that woman until it came out in a lawsuit. And if it had never come out in a lawsuit, he'd have never had sex with that woman, allegedly, at his off-campus apartment.
Because that's the truth. The honor code's not the problem, bro.
That's life. When you go to BYU, they hand you the document, you read it after the recruiting process in which you talked about it multiple times with your lead recruiting contact, your football and your position coaches. This is not something BYU runs from. This is not a secret that's just all of a sudden dropped on a kid. Somebody is making the argument with me on Twitter over the weekend that, oh, well, this was just a PR stunt, so here comes the honor code. No, dude, you're from Florida, so I don't expect you to get it.
Florida man.
The honor code at BYU is not some secret hidden document that nobody's able to read as though it's the ACC ESPN contract. No, friends, it's out in the open. It's recruited. It's a recruiting tool. BYU talks to parents and kids about it almost from the jump, because BYU is not for everybody. There's just no question about that. BYU's not recruiting the same people that Texas Tech or Ohio State or USC is recruiting.
Because what did he say there? Right? What did he also include? It's about academics too.
BYU is not an easy institution to go to school at.
They don't want it to be for everybody.
That's right.
And I feel like people won't accept that about BYU. It's, dude, right at the end, it was the most important thing. We expect our student athletes to live a certain lifestyle that they agreed to when they signed the document. You can't say it any more plainly than that. That is the agreement. So for all of you people who are like, oh, the honor code was he got done dirty by the honor code. No, dude, he did himself dirty. He put himself in a bad situation.
We all make choices.
Yeah.
Right? And I talk about this all the time. We all want rules and laws until they need to be applied to us. And we all want rules and laws until they're the consequences of our poor choices. And there is no question. And I am not degrading Jake Retzlaff. I don't know what happened in that apartment, but I do know one thing. Jake Retzlaff made poor choices because he wound up in the middle of a jackpot when this gal filed a civil lawsuit. Did they settle out? I don't actually believe. I've talked to a bunch of people in law about this. I actually think that there was no settlement, in my opinion. I don't believe he paid her a settlement. I think the text messages and the overwhelming amount of evidence that was unearthed through the police department, and I think it was very clear, in my opinion, it was very clear what had happened there. And I think this girl who filed this civil suit, Jane Doe, I think her and her attorneys quickly figured out that if this went in front of a judge, it was probably not going to end well. And Jake Retzlaff was not just going to roll over and die. And now Jake Retzlaff is going to wind up at another university, which we're going to talk about in a minute, playing football. And he's going to be far worse for wear. This cost him a ton of money. I guarantee you this cost him draft slot potential in the NFL. But Jake Retzlaff came out of this as well as he could have. He's not whole. He will forever be scarred by this. But he came out as well as he could have. And my guess is, my opinion is, there was no settlement. I think they mutually withdrew this case with prejudice so it can never be refiled, remind you, because the evidence did the talking. So it is what it is. But my point is, at BYU, when you hear Kalani Sitake, did he avoid that question today? Well, I can't really talk about it. No, he did not. He said Jake's going to release his own statement, and I'm not going to get into the details of that. I'm going to let Jake talk for himself. But as far as the honor code goes at BYU, we're in a we're run by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and we're going to do this, and we have this, and it's tough to be a student here. BYU's not for everybody, but when you are at BYU, like, he did exactly what you need the head coach. No, he did exactly what you need him to do as a head coach at BYU. So there's that. All right. Now the juices are flowing. All the pent-up energy is out. Your thoughts on all of this? Glad Slacker, first in, a member for 21 months on the Monty Show. Monty, thoughts on the Mountain West voting to admit GCU this year and the Boise State AD threatening litigation over it? The Boise State AD can threaten litigation over it all he wants. I don't have thoughts on it because I've been telling you that for 3-4 months now since it was announced.
How long?
That there was no reason not to admit GCU. You look at their WAC WCC situation. Let Boise State file a lawsuit. Go spend more of your own money. Go. All Boise State filing a lawsuit does is damage the Pac-12, which is why my guess is they're not going to do that. GCU entering the Mountain West this year is not of consequence to the Pac-12. And in my opinion, I think it is exactly the right move, mainly because I've told you I thought it was going to happen. Because it makes too much sense. GCU is an absolute basketball juggernaut who needs opportunities and finances to build a program. And without opportunity and finance, they're still an NCAA tournament team. So now you put them in the Mountain West, and what do they become? An NCAA tournament team. And why does that piss off people like Boise? Because that means more tournament shares and more financial windfall for the Mountain West. Because remember, nobody's leaving the Mountain West this coming basketball season. That's a year from now. So if you are a Mountain West basketball team right now, you're trying to make the NCAA tournament. There's no doubt about that. And what happens with those tournament shares? Does Boise get to take those tournament shares with them? No, it stays with the conference. So Boise can shake its tail feather, but this is exactly the right move to make.
Totally agree.
There's no doubt. The eye patch. I guess this is an editorial for the TDS honor code. It's not an editorial for the TDS honor code. And you don't have to like it, but the fact of the matter is a girl who I believe was loyal to the Utah football program tried to torpedo Jake Retzlaff and BYU football, in my opinion. So I hope you're proud of that, because I think it's absolutely disgusting. This is not the NFL. This is not Trevor Bauer in Major League Baseball. And if you're a Utah fan who's happy and celebrating what Jake Retzlaff and BYU went through, you're disgusting. because no man should go through what Jake Retzlaff went through, in my opinion. Now, had he been found guilty or had there been a criminal component to this other than, hey, Jane Doe, we'd be having a different conversation. Funny thing is, there was no actionable evidence according to the police department. She didn't say anything. According to Jake's filing in court, they had amicable, lighthearted text messages or messages back and forth through February of the following year. This alleged heinous sexual assault happened on Thanksgiving 2023. They were messaging each other through February of 2024. It's hard to say this doesn't. Come on.
Yeah.
Come on. If my grandma had wheels, she'd be a bicycle, bro. Like, what are we doing? Right? Like,
why does it piss you guys off so much? The honor code is very straightforward.
The thing that I don't understand, and what really bothers me, is Utah fan is always cheering for people to be damaged or in pain or suffer. And it's reprehensible. It is absolutely disgusting to me that you would celebrate and root for another man to allegedly have been falsely accused of rape. Do you know how damaging that is to this guy for the rest of his life? Like, your little football game that nobody really cares about outside of this state is meaningless when it comes to a guy losing his good name and reputation for the rest of his life on something he didn't do, allegedly. So, Patch, I hope you're thrilled with your lack of morals and humanity. Because when you make comments like editorial for TDS honor code, you tell me who you are, and trust me, when you tell me who you are, I believe you. Wholeheartedly, all in, I believe you that that's who you are. Brandon Butler, you don't go to Notre Dame unless you got good grades and you are willing to go to Mass. Dude, it is the exact same situation.
But that's the shame of it, isn't it? He is a good student, and he was willing to do what he needed to do.
Not only was Jake Retzlaff a good student, he already graduated. So he's able to transfer without pause. Because, I know it's just TDS down south, right? And it's, the honor code. I get out of here. It's so ridiculous.
It's just a dumb take, dude.
The choices you make dictate the life you lead. And Jake Retzlaff made some very questionable choices here, in my opinion.
But I also think just the same way you feel about that situation, I feel like NFL officials and people who are on the outside looking in, who maybe don't, have all the information people on the inside do, probably feel the same way. I mean, it's hard not to feel that way based on kind of how it went down. Like, and so I think that, because again, Jake's been on the show, and in the time we've had the opportunity to talk to him, like, he's a good speaker. He's always seemed like a reasonable guy to me. Now, like, obviously we can't factually speak to it, but if you're just talking about reputation, right? Like what someone's market value is based on sentiment, I will be genuinely curious to see how the NFL receives him, because they will receive him. I do think he will get drafted. He's not a day one guy, certainly, but he will get drafted. And I'll be really interested to see where he goes, because I this particular thing, if you think about the NFL, they've had so many of these quarterbacks do dumb stuff situations.
Yes.
That this, crazy enough, this is really not that bad when you compare it to the Deshaun Watson thing or whoever you want to look at. Like, it's just, by NFL standards, it's just not as big a deal. So I still think he's going to be fine, but I would agree with you that you're not the same as you were before. That's the problem.
And in life, because football doesn't matter, and I will continue to say this over and over and over and over again, football doesn't matter. In life, Jake Retzlaff will forever be known as the guy in that civil suit. And we don't know what happened in that apartment. And I continue to maintain, could everything this girl have said happen? Probably not, because if it would have happened that way, in my opinion, it would have been a criminal matter. Mm-hmm. I was trying to explain to somebody I didn't leave because I wanted to charge my phone argument today. I was trying to explain that to somebody, and she said to me, I'm out. I would have left my phone behind. And this person said exactly what I said. I'd have walked out that door. Excuse me. I would have sprinted out that door and pounded on every neighbor's door in that apartment area because I was just choked out and physically beaten by a much larger human being. But instead, you stayed to charge your phone. And then you exchanged amicable, lighthearted text messages with who you're making an assaulter for another 3 months. It makes it hard to believe. It makes it hard to believe. And then you have idiots at Utah rooting against him. It's wild to me. I'll never understand it. I will never, ever understand it. The Natural says, hit the like button. People 29 is nasty work. Yes, please hit the like button. And again, if you're on X, if you're one of the 400 people watching on X, make sure you come over to YouTube, The Monty Show, MONTY, The Monty Show. Pirate Mitch, if I'm an opponent of BYU, I'm throwing parties and inviting all of them on a away game, cameras out. It doesn't work like that. BYU is locked down the night before games. It is a business trip. They travel generally late Thursday or early Friday. They are in the hotel. They are doing their meetings and their walkthroughs, and they are doing their prayer sessions. They're doing their study halls, and they are on bed check. And they have roommates. Bro. No, they have roommates, and they have accountability. It's that you don't go to parties on the road. It does not work like that. I think the Mormons regretted a young Jew being the poster boy for BYU. Not really. No, I don't think they regretted it at all.
Yeah, I don't even think that was really, with all due respect, man, I really don't even think that was a thing. As a matter of fact, I know that people celebrated that about him, that he,
yes,
he had the Manischewitz deal, and the BYU brand was strong for him, and I remember this past season, like, if you watch BYU games, there were all kinds of like signs and posters and all types of stuff.
The desire to be a melting pot that BYU has, that a young Jewish guy who was almost inarguably the best junior college transfer in football that year, chose BYU, was a feather in their cap. I think they were celebrating that melting pot, and that somebody of the Jewish faith could fit in so easily and seamlessly without provocation, no waves, glassy, smooth water at BYU, I think was great until it wasn't. Mike Smith, it's funny when fans and media complain about coaches giving generic answers. This is why coaches give generic answers, because they get roasted for being honest. I think it's all very circumstantial. If you go into a situation like Mike Gundy and you say, who hasn't done that 1,000 times, you're an idiot. And you probably shouldn't be talking to the media. What a great weekend to be at Wrigley. Absolute destruction of the Cards. Dude, it was hot. There were significant weather. Saturday was so hot, I stayed like an inning and a half. Like, it was unbearable. That you're sitting still and our clothes were soaked through in sweat. Like, we went across the street to a bar and had something to eat, sat in the air conditioning and watched the game, because it was literally, you guys, unbearable heat and humidity, like middle 90s with just pure humidity. It was really, really bad. Really, really bad. And it was funny. It's a huge game Saturday against the Cardinals, and there were a ton of empty seats because of how hot it was. It was unbelievable. Let's see, who else? Dirty Utah Cooter trying to torpedo Jake. Yeah, who knew?
Right.
Delaric, here's the deal. A lot of schools have an honor code that the students have to sign. Not all like the BYU one, but there are others out there. Oh, there's a ton of them out there.
Certainly.
The difference with other people in their code of conducts, the difference at BYU is football is inconsequential when it comes to the tenets of the LDS Church, when it comes to living a chaste lifestyle, when it comes to alcohol, tobacco, porn, sex, living a virtuous life is non-negotiable at BYU. if you are at another school with a code of conduct and, well, it was how, and the best example is that was just a little weed. Just a little weed doesn't matter at BYU. It was weed or it wasn't weed, and that's not a virtuous lifestyle. You're out. Period. Reports say Jake would have gotten a 7-game suspension because he admitted in his court filing that he had consensual sex with this girl. Is what it is. You knew what you signed up for. You knew what you signed up for, right? If all parties agree the case can never be refiled and a judge signs off on it, then guess what? There was never a provable case against Retzlaff. Probably. The likelihood is, in my opinion, that no settlement was paid. It's at that with prejudice and a judge's seal of approval. Let that sink in. With prejudice can never be refiled. It's
tough.
That's tough. That is tough. Just for the record, this Utah hussy was not part of the Lot Lizard Union. Thanks for looking that up. Boyd Lake, I just hope all parties find what they want. Hopefully at least one QB in the room is ready for BYU. And that, I think, is a huge issue because I also love all the idiot Utah fans who are like, Retzlaff sucked anyways. Well, if he sucked anyways, why are you celebrating that he was accused of sexual assault and that he's not at BYU anymore? Oh, never thought about that. Oh, yeah, he sucks so bad. What are they, 11-2 or whatever?
Right.
Oh, he sucks
Terrible.
so bad. Right? Can't have it both ways. Cannot have it both ways. Mike Smith, NFL will not care about college kid having sex. Either he is good enough to play on the team or not. And certainly now with the court case being kicked, this goes to the question of where does Jake Retzlaff end up?
Mm-hmm.
Because Jake has not officially entered the transfer portal, at least not as at the beginning of the show. And so the question is, where does Jake Retzlaff realistically transfer for this season? Everybody is talking about Tennessee. Makes total sense. Tennessee does not have a proven starter. They have a system that fits Jake Retzlaff really well. But here are the hurdles for Jake Retzlaff. Learning an offense is not a hurdle. Commanding an offense in a matter of weeks is a hurdle.
And he knows that firsthand.
Yeah, he will, no matter where Jake Retzlaff goes, he will not have command of the offense or its language this season.
And it makes you wonder, just in terms of the process, like from everything we can tell, he's not officially in the portal yet, but, obviously it goes without saying that I'm sure he's having some conversations and figuring out what his next stop is going to be. So, it'll just be interesting to see, where he goes. But if you zoom out a little bit and take Tennessee out of it, I agree, it makes perfect sense. But if you take Tennessee out of it and you just say, hey, this is a kid that needs a 1-year stop to launch himself high up the draft boards in the NFL, it's the Big Ten or the SEC. Those are the only 2 stops. And whether that's Tennessee, whether, he finagles his way into, the Will Howards of the world, Ohio State, Oregon, like he needs to go to one of those programs where he can go in, they'll cater it to him for a year. You go out and compete at a really high level and he does what he needs to do.
Notre Dame is the other one that everybody talks about. I was talking to a major college football guy today who said he thinks he's going to Notre Dame. I just don't know how that flies with the admissions folks at Notre Dame. Now, obviously, Jake, if you have the grades at BYU, you can pretty much get by anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
The lifestyle at Notre Dame is not as rigid as it is at BYU, but you're going to mass at Notre Dame. You are expected to live a lifestyle at Notre Dame, whether you are Catholic or not. You are expected to live a lifestyle, and I don't know that the admissions folks are going to look kindly on this lawsuit, dismissed or not. I don't know. And Jake obviously can provide them details and evidence, but it's awfully difficult to walk into the Notre Dame offices and say, yeah, we smashed, but, I didn't, it was consensual. Look at all these text messages. Not sure that's the conversation Notre Dame's admission office wants to have.
Probably
Right?
not.
I mean,
Probably
that's
not.
tough. And I think when you start looking at somewhere else in the Big 12, I don't think there's you're not going to step down to who needs a quarterback in the Big 12. Oklahoma State doesn't have a clear-cut number one again. Jake would certainly be the bet, but are you stepping down to Oklahoma State? That doesn't make a lot of sense. Not when you go to Tennessee.
Yeah, I think the other thing is he's not going to go to a small-time program or a program that's just not national championship caliber good, because wherever he goes, he's going to get questions about this, and it's going to be a narrative for probably 2 weeks. I mean, honestly, if you really take a good look at it, the hey, you just signed with a new team, let the media ask you a million questions about what happened with this girl situation, that's going to last probably at least a week.
Yeah.
That you're going to have to deal with that, and so if you're, if Jake's out here considering like lower end Big 12 school, you don't, Houston doesn't want that. Cincinnati's not going to want that. Like, they're not dealing with that. And Jake doesn't want to go to those places. So that's what I'm saying. Like he needs to go somewhere where there's opportunity, but it's also a big program. So Tennessee makes sense. But I'm telling you, there are other places that I'm sure would have him. I am sure. Because again, we know how human beings work. If we're sitting here talking about, well, hey, A plus B doesn't equal C here, this guy has had a spotless record up until this point, like, what happened here? Like, he's going to have the opportunity to tell his side of the story and say, hey, I'm accountable to this part maybe didn't happen or whatever. Like, he's going to get to tell his story.
And if you believe the reports, I mean, he's got a laundry list of universities looking to sign him up. Which tells me there's got to be a hiccup in the transfer portal process. He's got 2 years of eligibility left, and I think if you're Jake Retzlaff, you're probably now seriously thinking about using both of those years.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there's either a legislative issue or he may need a waiver to play this year, but I don't think there's any doubt his services are in demand, which tells me the legal process played out in his favor, which is another indicator that he did not pay a settlement in that case, in my opinion. So we'll see what that all plays, but there's no doubt he's got options at the university level. It's going to be a matter of what is the issue with the transfer portal, and because I don't know how long he can wait. I don't know if it's because what is today? July 8th. I mean, we're in the second week of July now.
Yeah, you'd like to be learning the playbook now.
And, well, to that point, I think my opinion is he already knows where he's going, which kind of lends some credence to some folks who think there is a hiccup in the transfer situation. He is a grad transfer, so he should have free and clear transfer status anywhere he wants to go. But there is that date. I was talking to a guy who knows a guy who knows a guy.
Yeah, this guy.
I was talking to an athletic director the other day who was saying, hey, there could be an issue with the transfer portal that would require him to get a waiver. Now, these are extenuating circumstances. A waiver would almost certainly be granted because he's being forced to transfer essentially by the rules at BYU. So we'll see. I think it's a fascinating follow. I think it is fascinating. I think it's got to be Tennessee. It's after the Imaliava stuff, and
yeah,
they clearly have the money to make him whole, which some people believe is part of that conversation. I don't necessarily know if that's the case, but if you go to Tennessee and you win and you play well, he could go to the NFL draft next spring.
I don't think there's any doubt that he could put this behind him if he goes somewhere and dominates. Like, I mean, again, I'm a big believer that it's kind of like what you said, right? Like, when they show you who they are as a quarterback, you believe them. The guy's never going to have, 76% completion percentage. That's not who he is.
It's too much of a gunslinger.
But to that point, I think if you go and you play for Josh Heupel at Tennessee and you're in that system, like the defense at Tennessee is good enough to hold its own and make up for some of those deficiencies. And I think what we all saw is that Jake's risk aversion being so low often led to really good things for the offense. There were a lot of times where he made throws that were questionable that did work out and went for a touchdown. So, to me, it's like, hey, if he can just find, 61, 62% on an SEC team, he's going to be fine. But he's got to, whether it's the waiver situation or whatever, what he needs to do, if I was advising him, I would say, dude, just focus on football. Make sure your ass is in the best shape of your, like, literally, I'm not talking Dak Prescott best shape of your life. I'm talking about like the best shape you have ever been in, ever. Go out and prove a point with your fitness.
I have to think he is.
I have to think he is, dude. What else would you be doing? To your point, he's a graduate transfer. He doesn't have school to worry about. Like, what else would you be doing?
Yeah, nothing. And Jay, we'll see. We'll see what happens. My guess is that, and, I saw somebody wrote an article. I want to say it was one of the guys at one of the Big 12 blogs or somewhere talking about how Nebraska wants to replace Patrick Mahomes Light. And I'm like, do you really think that's not happening? That is, there's just no way. Nebraska's not an option. I don't think there is a fit in the Big Ten. I think it is Notre Dame's got a clear fit. In Tennessee's got a clear fit. Oregon, possibly. But Eugene is such a weird place. And I've tried to explain to people year after year that Eugene is a very weird place. I don't know that if you're a Southern California kid, you want to go up to Eugene.
But Dan Lanning has proven that he can get you into the playoff at least. Now, winning playoff games is a different story.
Well, and he's got back-to-back quarterbacks in the NFL.
So, I mean, if
that makes sense.
feels like more of a, kind of like a want to situation from Oregon's side. I mean, if Dan, liked Jake's fit in the program and wanted to add him, then, maybe there's opportunity there. But what we know for sure about Dan Lanning is he's always got quarterbacks on the roster. He's always got guys that are, top 10 potential. So I don't know. I just think that, like I said, I think what you can count on is Jake is going to go somewhere where he's got access to the CFP.
Yes.
And he has access to a system that allows him to play the kind of football he wants to play. He's not going to go to, and this is my hesitation with the Notre Dame thing. Notre Dame is a defensive-minded scheme. Notre Dame is a defense first, just try to scrape it together on offense system. That's what they are. And they do it really well. Give them credit. But for Retzlaff and his future, he needs to go somewhere like Tennessee or like, Oregon or somewhere that allows him to show off his arm and show off his legs. So to me, that's why, if in my opinion, I think Notre Dame isn't the favorite. I think he's going to go somewhere where he can, as you said, gunsling it, basically. I
think that's Tennessee. Yeah. Although Notre Dame would like to be able to gunsling it. And I just don't think they have the wide receivers, and obviously they have the running back. They don't have the quarterback. And
yeah,
I mean, we'll see. I thought grads could do right in the portal, could go right into the portal right away. They can.
Yeah.
But it's a matter of timing. There is a late spring, like a first week of May deadline that some people think may be holding him up. Who knows? I don't know. He lacks a class to graduate. No, he does not. Jake Retzlaff does not. Jake Retzlaff already graduated at BYU. And BYU is infamous. I think I did save the picture. BYU is infamous for not letting kids who have not actually done the work graduate, like in the ceremony. I'm going to say he's done the work and he's graduated. Because there's Jake Retzlaff in his BYU cap and gown graduating. So I'm going to say Jake's done the work. And I would remind you that, yes, he is in the BYU press release. 113 BYU athletes graduate as part of a class of 2025. many of whom attended the senior banquet that took place. When is this dated? April 24th. Many of whom took place Wednesday night. Olympic silver medalist Kenneth Rooks, NCAA 200-meter backstroke runner-up, and 5-time BYU record holder Mackenzie Miller-Lung. A swimmer's last name is Lung, L-U-N-G. Oh, and look at that. Current BYU quarterback Jake Retzlaff graduated. So it is.
I'm going to say he's doing just fine.
Yeah, it is. It's a big deal to be a graduate because it gives you freedom. It gives you freedom. You know, it really is as simple as that. He certainly
has the tools to get past this. That's what I'll say. You know, he's got the talent. He's, you know, he's got the ability to get somewhere new. You know, I truly, for Jake's sake, hope that he learned the lesson. I would assume he has, but I hope that he learns the lesson. And I hope we never hear anything else about him off the field outside of NIL deal, and that's it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to hear anything else.
Yep, totally agree. A couple more. Oh, God. Oak State James is here. Praying that Jake ends up in Stillwater. Why on earth would Jake Retzlaff go to Stillwater? You're going to be lucky to win 3 games this year. Why would he step into that? I mean, there is absolute there. You don't pay people well. You cut your coach's pay. You don't NIL well.
Yeah, you publicly admit that you don't pay people well. Like, it's not even a secret.
Why would he go to Oak State when he can go to Tennessee, which by all accounts is the absolute most aggressive university chasing him? Why would he do that? I mean, Oak State is, I don't know that Oklahoma State football has ever been less attractive than it is right now. There's just no way. Nobody in the Big 12 ran the 2-minute drill better than Jake Retzlaff.
Agreed.
Oh, there's no question.
Agreed.
Jake Retzlaff against they played some very stout defenses. His 2-minute, where Jake Retzlaff got himself inefficient and where he struggled was when their play calls got conservative. I don't think Aaron Roderick, the play caller at BYU, did him any favors. I think, and I know that A-Rod's experienced, and it's a sacrilege to speak poorly of BYU coaches. Aaron Roderick is not a good play caller. He just isn't. He does not commit to the run enough. In my opinion, too many cutesy plays. Like, Jake Retzlaff is a true dual threat quarterback. Jake Retzlaff is elite in 2-minute because they allow him to get rid of the football, but they also allow him to run in 2-minute. And when you have to respect a quarterback's mobility, it opens up windows in the middle of the field. And where does Jake throw the football well? Middle of the field. He is not, I don't believe at BYU last year, I don't think he was a great sideline boundary deep ball thrower.
No, he struggled to thread the needle there.
I think in the middle of the field, the slant routes, the hold a safety or hold a linebacker, throw the football, he was elite there.
Go watch the Oklahoma State game.
The way that he moved guys against the best defenses they saw. I mean, that's why I think so many people believe he'd be such a good fit in the SEC, because he's actually better against better defenses. And you look at the talent. BYU had an elite receiver room last year, but they almost never utilized the tight end. Like, what if you had an offense that, and I don't want to get crazy.
Careful, dude. Please be careful.
What if he was in an offense where he was actually told to hand the ball off a couple of 2-3 times? What if he was in an offense where he was allowed to zip the 8-yard under route to a tight end? That you could then build off of that under route to get a play down the hash. I know.
And see, this is where
I get it.
This is where I think that, because, like, I agree, Aaron Roderick's not a great play caller, but it's not just that he calls bad plays at bad times. There's no depth to it. There's no A plus B plus C equals seam route for a touchdown. You're not manipulating the defense through multiple plays in a certain order. And I agree. That's why I think he didn't use the tight end at all. That's why BYU struggles to use the tight end, because you don't run the football enough. So you can't run play action. So the tight end's never open. And you wind up trying to go down the field with deep shots. The only difference is Jake has the arm and the football IQ to manipulate the safety, so your boy's open. like that's what BYU's offense was last year. So if you're an SEC, if you're Josh Heupel and you're looking at his tape, you're like, yeah, well, we've got probably twice the running back room. We've got a way better offensive line.
How many Darius Lassiter throws? Was there a guy draped on Darius Lassiter and the ball was just, especially late in games, especially late in halves? Like, yeah, that's what I would say. A-Rod sucks. Well, I just don't like his, Cooper flags about to tear his Achilles thanks to James. Yeah, Oak State James did put his stamp of approval on. And we know
notorious.
James also put his stamp of approval on Jake Retzlaff. And then all of a sudden a bunch of court filings happened, and we all know how that played out. I would say Michigan, but we have Underwood. Well, you guys do take, no, I'm not playing your stupid little game. You guys do take scandals to the next level. Okay,
yeah, boy.
I played your stupid little game. It's fine. Actually, the truth is Rob Glass is the best S&C coach in the country. So wait, we're now measuring strength. I think you mean strength and conditioning coaches. So let me get this right, which is why Jake should go to Oak State if he wants to get ready for the NFL. So let me get this right. It's not access to national TV games, which Oak State, I don't believe, I could be wrong. I looked at the schedule for the next 37 seasons, and I don't believe that Oak State has a single game on national TV. This is akin to, BDSM seats on top of Rice-Eccles Stadium to block the mountain view. Let me get this right. I'm not the smartest guy, and I certainly don't spend as much time in the rectory as you do. But your belief is that Jake Retzlaff should choose his next university based solely on the the S&C coach.
Cocaine is a hell of a drug.
Not winning games, not being on TV, not playing a good schedule that'll put you in big moments, not the ability to go to the college football playoffs.
Excellent strategy, sir.
And I know Brett Yormark is going to join you in the rectory in his fight for the 5'11". But you think he should go to Oak State because some asshole that I've never heard of is the best S&C coach in the country.
Hey, look here, man.
Okay.
All right, bro.
I mean, now my feeling is that Rob Glass is going to have a 45-pound plate drop down his cranium and die this evening because you've talked about him now.
Do you even live?
But this is a new one. This is the strength and conditioning coach. I mean,
incredible work, dude.
I like motion offense. Earthquake on 3. Aaron Roderick.
Wow, bro. Wow.
I thought you said I had to explain what earthquaking and soaking was at a dinner table. At what was a really supposedly high-end restaurant that turned out to be a crap shack. So I felt better doing it. But did you just drop an earthquake in there? Okay. BYU football. I don't believe that A-Rod can get another quarterback ready for the season. Well, I think that's a huge question. Huge question. Jeff Woodworth. I heard Jake was headed to cock on thigh, but they found the girl was too old, so rescinded the offer.
Macaque.
Okay. Let's see. Eric Wasikowski. Oak State hasn't been relevant since Trump's administration destroyed the Jeffrey Epstein evidence. I can't agree with that. That's awesome.
I mean, that's a great comment, dude. Nice job, bro.
Oh, we're going to get to that. If Jake Retzlaff, here's Oak State James. If Jake Retzlaff was the QB in Stillwater and he led Oak State against Oregon, I think the Cowboys can upset the Ducks.
What are you doing? What are you doing?
Come,
Dude,
what
are you doing?
Don't tell me that you broke into the box of wine in the rectory and now you're drinking the blood of Christ and getting a little tipsy on JC's rib damage.
Biggest load that we've seen.
Are you kidding me right now? Are you kidding me right now? I think the Cowboys could upset the Ducks.
You know.
Do you hear the words coming out of your keyboard right now?
Bro, I know you've got the best S&C coach we've ever seen, but that's not happening, bro. That's not happening.
Welcome to the nightmare. I read somewhere that Jake Retzlaff's biggest selling point for the next team is how great their IPF is. The Monty show starring stadium guy James. We all show up for your takes, bro.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did.